Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Self-Publishing Know-How with me, Debbie, and we have Camilla Chester with us.
Hello, everyone.
And Kate Poels has joined us. Yay, there she is. And Kate she's gone again. She'll be back, don't worry. She's having an internet problem, but she'll be back. So, first of all, let me just remind you that we are donating to 7 Stories. So if you could press on the button to donate to 7 Stories if you would like to. Oh, there she is. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Yes, so down the bottom is the donate to 7 Stories, please, if you can. This session is going to be about 45 minutes, and then we're going to just chat through some questions, and then we'll look at your questions to see what you've got. And we would ask you to put those questions in the little bit down the bottom where it says ask a question. If you put it in the chat, it tends to get lost unless you've got a question mark on the end. So if you've got something to ask us, do put it in there. So let me introduce us all. So Camilla is in. Thank you. So Camilla is she's a volunteer for the SCBWI, and she's front of house now for the conference. So she does all the big stuff at the front of house conference. Camilla has 3 books published. 13th Wish. There we go. Jarred Dreams.
Oh, Jarred Dreams at the bottom.
Oh, there we go. And Eat.
Eats.
I've left the S off. Sorry. Eats. Camilla and Kate. Yay! We're delighted to have you here again.
Yes.
So,
fingers crossed.
Kate is a children's writer, book reviewer, and creative writing workshop coordinator. And she published her 2nd book for children. Now, have I pronounced it right? Mima
Mima
Malone and the Mad Bad. All right, Mima, inventor. Last summer. So there's Kate's book as well.
Yeah.
So fantastic to have you with us today. And we're going to be talking about all things to do with self-publishing. So do remember, pop your questions in the box and we will try to answer them. So first of all, if I can go to the both of you first. Should we go to Camilla first? Could you just give us an idea of your journey into self-publishing, because you've obviously made a conscious decision to do self-publishing.
Yeah.
So tell us about the journey towards that.
Oh, okay. Well, what happened with me was I was all set to do the traditional route, and I have always wanted to be a writer. I've always written and always wanted to write for children. And like all of us, it was just, 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. I'd got to the point where I had an agent. I'd entered, Jarred Dreams had been entered into the National Literacy Trust, and I was one of the finalists with the book. And had I won, I would have been published by Bloomsbury. Not bitter at all. But so I didn't win, and then it all went wrong, pear-shaped with my agent, like it does for a lot of people. And I was felt like I was completely, having been so close, and I could touch it, and then it all just sort of was ripped away, and I was right back to square one, back to the slush pile. And I just thought, and I sort of half-heartedly tried to get an agent. But then what happened was I went into my daughter's school as an author. I got asked to come in by one of the teachers there, and we had another author who local to the area who went in with me. And I loved it so much. I really, really enjoyed being with the kids. And I just got such a buzz out of it, and I really enjoyed it. And I just said, how many of you, had I got a book now ready to sell to you, how many of you would want to buy it? And of course, the whole class put their hands up. And I thought, well, there you go. I've got a market. If I can get into schools, I can sell it. I already know it's good enough because it's done so well in the competition. And I remember saying to one of the editors there, are all these books that are finalists, are they good enough? And she said, oh yeah, they're all good enough to be published. So I already knew it had that kite mark, and I just thought, well, why don't I do it myself? And then I joined Scooby in the meantime and had met Debbie, and Debbie was really helpful with the sort of nuts and bolts and things. And I just started from there and just decided that was why I decided to do it. So that was the reason behind it.
Fabulous.
Obviously loved it so much, I did 3.
You did it 3 times.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, thank you. And same for you, Kate.
Well, I started writing adult books actually 10 years ago in February, I realised, and I didn't get anywhere. And to be honest, my adult books, I wrote a YA and it wasn't very good. And then I had this idea of an adult book that I really wanted to get out there. And I sent it to a few agents and it didn't really go anywhere. And somebody said, why don't you put it on Kindle? So actually my first 2 books that I self-published were both for adults and both just available on Kindle. And they had not an awful lot of success really, but they were okay. And then my daughter said, why don't you write for children? I thought, I don't know why I don't write for children. I'm a primary school teacher. I've got children. I love reading children's books. So that's when I wrote my first book, Zachary Mackerel, for children. And I decided at that point, I wanted to just self-publish it. So I did that the expensive way. So I've got 2 different children's books out now, and Zachary was the expensive route, and I contacted a company and they edited it for me, did a cover for me, they gave it the ISBN, it went into in theory could go into bookshops because it had an ISBN number, and I could, like Camilla, took it into schools, but I had to sell. It wasn't until I'd sold about my 500th copy of that I actually made my money back from the self-publishing. So and after that I probably only sold another couple of hundred. So yes, so when I decided, then I got myself an agent actually, and worked with her for a bit, and like Camilla, it didn't work out for us very, very well, so I decided to part company with her, and joined the slush pile again. And then with Mima Malone, it was very frustrating because this time last year it was sitting with a publishing house. It had been edited. It was sort of almost ready to go with it. And then COVID hit and the plug got pulled because in Mima Malone, there's something going on and the adults think it's a superbug. So you don't bring a book like that out when there is an actual superbug going on. So it got pulled. But it had gone so far and it had been properly edited, and I knew that it was good enough. Like Camilla said, that's quite an important thing. Zachary Mackerel, I didn't know if it was good enough. I'd been through my critique group, my parents, my friends, but it hadn't had anybody from the industry give it the once over. So with Mima, I just felt it's her time to shine, and if it can't go out traditionally, then I'm going to do it myself. And I did that one through Amazon. So the only money I had to pay out was for the cover. So two different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
But I've already paid my money back from Mima already.
Yeah. Okay, so I completely failed to introduce me. So I'm Debbie Edwards, and I have self-published 3 books, which you'll get the hang of. Yeah, you'll see this quite a lot. These are my 3 books. Yeah, this happens quite a lot with self-published people. And I'm a Golden Egg member, mentee. I'm out on submission with them. But I also run a region for Scooby as well. So my self-publishing journey, again, there's lots of similarities. And I'd written my first book, and I had I sent it to Cornerstones, which is a literary consultancy, and had it looked at there. So I went through lots of edits, and I tried the route of agents, didn't find anyone, and I had lots of lovely feedback. Mine's about stroppy teenage tooth fairies, so there was some lovely feedback about this is different, it's nice, but we have got fairies and I can't see a place for it. So I didn't lose heart completely, but as time went on, I just thought, I'll be honest, I practiced it on the children I taught as well. Let's be honest here. I was also a primary school teacher in year 6, so I used to give them copies of the manuscript and they would go home and read it and make notes on it, things like that. It's great having that audience there. And eventually I just thought, do you know what, I really want to get the book out there somehow. So I went a different route, and I found the wonderful York Publishing Services, YPS, in York, and I went through them. So I paid out a large amount of money to have my book put together, and they were absolutely fabulous. I went and had lunch with them. I saw how the book was being printed, you know, and they guided me through, because they do that, and they guided me through how to put the book together. And the technology, I mean, it's amazing, all the words as well that you know, the different types of pages, putting it all together. Yeah, and I loved it so much that I went and did it again, and then went and did it again.
Like we do.
As you do. So yeah, and so really, I mean, I was, you know, I became a member of Scooby, and you know, looking around at ways of perhaps being traditionally printed, but I decided that I'd stick with those, so I reordered those. I used to go into Waterstones, WH Smith's, lots of school visits under my belt, and I still go into school visit and do school visits now. Well, not at this moment, but we can talk about that a bit later. So that's really my journey. So my next question for us to think about is the hard bits, really, because you know, we've all done it, and we've come out the other end, and you know, we're all smiling, but crikey, there have been some hard bits on the way, haven't there? So what about the most difficult parts of self-publishing? Kate, should we go to you first?
Right, so for me, it's been different for each book. So for the first book, for Zachary Mackerel, going into schools, I found that quite easy. So selling my book, weirdly, I felt it was that for me was quite an easy thing to do, because I with a teacher, I've got a teaching background. I found schools, they like having authors in. I was cheaper than lots of traditionally published authors. I was quite often more available. So I did find it quite easy to get into schools. For me, it was dealing actually with my self-publisher. So although I think they did a fantastic job, I'll just show you the cover again, any excuse. I think they did a fantastic job of the cover. And I did have it line edited by them, and they did a great job of that. But then every time there was an issue with the printers, that was down to me. So when I had a whole bundle that had the hardcovers weren't stuck properly, I had to contact the printers. And also they hadn't double checked the print when it came out the first time. And it wasn't until someone emailed me to say that page, I don't know, 47 till 56 was missing. And I realized that 100, 200 copies had gone out with pages missing. That was down to me to try and sort that out. You haven't got a team behind you. So that for me has been the most difficult, being everything. I'm just the writer, I'm the everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds really familiar. The sort of you're a one-man band and you're completely on your own. And I had a similar issue with my publisher with the cover that came for Jar Dreams. So this one's absolutely fine. This is the second batch. But the first batch, which the more you order, obviously the cheaper your unit costs are. So you want a bulk order. But like you're saying, Kate, like if they get it wrong, you're stuck with all these books and you've paid for them. And the cover was dark. It was fine, but it was too dark, so you couldn't really see the Dream Thief, and it just didn't show up very well. And the first banner that I got wasn't very good, but they did replace it, and they were pretty good. I mean, they must have been good enough because I went with them with the other two books. But I'd say being a one-man band it is exhausting, and like you feel like if you miss something, if you take your foot off the pedal even for a second, you might miss an opportunity and you might miss a chance. There's no one really getting you back. You know, you've got nobody supporting. There's no right-wing man. It's all onto you. It's all down to you, and it can be really, really tiring. You know, that is probably the worst part of it. And slight snootiness, like still, I think, with self-publishing. I think it's a lot better. But I do feel like I have to just, like the first thing I said to you guys was like, oh no, but I had done well in the competition. You know, you feel like you have to sort of say that you're at the level of the people that are traditionally published, because there's this sort of vanity thing to it. Oh, you know, who do you think you are? You can't tread the boards with everyone else. You've got to go and do it yourself. So you do get a little bit of edge in that. And also on the snobby side of that, you do sometimes get lumped with people that you wouldn't necessarily want to be on a stand with, or at a library event with, or whatever. I mean, sorry to say that, but that does happen. You know, it brings out the quirkiest of human beings. So it makes it quite interesting. Let's put it that way. Let's put it like that. But yeah, it can be really, really tough.
Yeah, and I'd agree as well. And I've had a couple of instances. I had a batch of the second book. Did I link that long enough? Yeah, the second book, where there was, I think I'm sure it was page 15. It's etched in my brain, where there was a paragraph missing, and so it couldn't lead into the next chapter. So, you know, it was. I think I was told by somebody I hadn't realised, and somebody had got in contact with me to say, you do realise there's you know, something's missing. There are some sentences missing. It doesn't make sense. Oh, so I had to then, obviously get onto the publishing place and get them to reissue. And they were very good. They did replace them, but those books were out there. And so whenever I went into Waterstones, I had to go into the check where my books were, take them off the shelf, and say to them, "I'm going to have to swap these over."
Oh no!
You know, and I was thinking, yeah, and it was like, you know, self-publishing, and it's that self-publishing beacon over your head, isn't it? You don't want to look unprofessional, but and it is, and I'd agree with the market inside can be quite tough because you know, I was in bookstores every weekend, sometimes Saturday and Sunday. I was lucky enough that Waterstones would let me into, and I'd travel around. When I lived in London, I'd travel around there, and I had a great place. WH Smith's in Croydon. Shout out to them, because they used to let me go in, and they just used to say, "Oh, just turn up. It's fine. It's fine." You know, you'd have to give 25% or whatever that you took to them took on the day to them, but mostly they just left me to it. But you know, we used to, you know, my husband would come with me, and we'd wander around the Waterstones saying to people, I'm a self-published author, or I'm an author. I'm in here today to talk about my book. I just wondered if you'd be interested in having a look. And you know, I leave it with you, and as they're walking around looking at it, you know, you hope that they come back to you and say, "Oh, I'm really interested. Yes, I'd like one," and I'd sign it. Or otherwise, at the end of the day, you'd have to walk around picking up your books from obscure places where people had just dumped them on the floor or dumped them in a corner. But
you sound like a great salesperson, Debbie.
Well, you know, if we go figure-wise, I'm quite proud to say that I've sold over 11,000 books.
Wow.
And that's, you know, and that's as a self-published author. You know, for me that feels really good. And you know, but that's on the good part anyway. The bad part. The other thing I was going to say on Camilla's bit is about like entering competitions. It's like you can't enter some competitions if you're self-published and things like that, and that's another downside. You know, that there are certain things that will say, you know, no self-published authors.
Bloggers won't blog about your book, and reviewers won't review you.
No, you can't. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people will. You know, My Book Corner, big shout out to them. They're fantastic, very supportive, and there are a few that will, but a lot of the time, they say no self-published. You know, it's really difficult to get. Catherine Rundell was the judge on Jar Dreams, and actually I was shortlisted in a book that wasn't published, but called Dana Sky, and I was finalist there in Dyslexia, and she was the judge there. But she didn't give me a quote on any of my books because she doesn't do it for self-published authors. And you get quite a few barriers like that I suppose they have to do a cut off somewhere, and you know, if they know that it's traditionally published, they know it's got that kite mark. But it does mean you can't, sometimes you're not connecting with librarians because of it. You know, people don't want you in school because you're self-published, you know, so there are barriers still.
Absolutely. But let's go on to the good bits.
Go on to the highs.
Let's go on to the highs. Kate, tell us some of the highs about being self-published.
It's quicker for a start. Well, it is and it isn't. So on that note, Mima Malone, which came out in the summer, was written 4 years ago. So it's I think if it's too quick, it's probably not going to be of good quality. Sorry. But I think you need to have it edited.
Yes,
either, or at least eyes on it. So critique group, not just your friends and family, find people who know what they're talking about and get them to read it. But once you've done all that, which you would do anyway for a traditionally published book, once you've got something that you feel proud enough of, that you think is good enough, somebody has said that they believe in you, and whoever you've chosen to edit goes, right, I agree, time to go. From that moment, it is quicker. You don't have this, we'll put you on the list for 2023, we've got a slot kind of thing. So that's a good thing. And also you are in control. So like the bad side, you're a one band. The good side is also you get the final say on the cover. You get the final say on whether somebody's called this or that, or, you know, if there's something you don't quite trust in the person who's editing, you just don't use that bit. And what you end up is something that you have been invested and involved in the whole way through. So some traditionally published people have that too, but I think as newbies, most debuts that come out, so, you know, it's so like, oh, I've got a book coming out, so whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. So you do have a bit more freedom to do what you like with your book.
Cam?
I mean, I definitely agree with Kay. I think it fast tracks you. So there I was, you know, back to square one, but no, I wasn't, because now I was in charge and I could create my book. I could get my book out there. All the things that traditional authors talk about, their highs, are the same for self-published authors. I have had a child dress up as the Dream Thief in World Book Day. I've had children contact me saying their books, they love my books. I'm their favourite author. You know, I get to hold them in my hand. You know, it's still the same thing. You have a book launch the same. You know, those things that all traditional authors go on about as being the best parts are still the same parts as you. I remember going into a children's playground and they're all going, Camilla, Camilla, Camilla. You know, brilliant. You're like a celebrity. It's fantastic. So all the connection that you have is the same. And I would say it can be it's such an up and down road anyway, being an author, and anything that you can do that will boost your morale and make you feel connected. I mean, Imogen this morning was talking about what a powerful job that we have, because we're creating that world for children and a window for children and a mirror, and we can still do that, and we don't necessarily have to wait like Rapunzel in her tower for someone to come and discover us. You know, we can go out there and do it. We can take control over it and make it happen. And that, I think, is probably the most powerful thing about self-publishing, is that you've got the reins of the horse. You know, you're doing it. It's quite empowering feeling. But of course, the flip side is it's exhausting. But I'd say that was the great thing. That's why I've done it 3 times.
Yeah, I think, you know, on what you were just saying about the, I was just thinking about I had an agent, and she said to me, will you be able to let all this go? And she was talking about the self-publishing, you know, because you're not going to be in control. Yeah. And do you know what? It's absolutely right, because, you know, as you were saying, you're able to decide everything. And also, it's just the bit I loved as well was just all the inside knowledge you gain about certain pages and which page should be here and how the typeset should be. You know, so much to learn. You know, but as you say, getting that book in your hands and knowing it's yours, it's just the most wonderful feeling ever.
Oh no, you just want to hug them, don't you? My babies.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely love them. And for me, I think, you know, what's come out of it all, going into school. So I'm trying to think. I've probably done about 120 school visits now, with my self-publishing books, not my traditional published books, with self-published books. And I talk to schools and I offer the visits, and I'm paid to go in there. I don't, they're not free visits. I go in and I'm paid for it because I have to see myself still as a professional. I maybe see other people as self-published, but I'm a professional writer. That's my job. And I get paid to go in and do visits. And the most wonderful thing happened last year. I became a patron of reading
Very cool.
at
cool.
a large primary school in Norwich. So, I mean, goodness me, who'd have thought that from, setting out with my novel, with knowing that, agents didn't want it, and it was so hard, it was, exhausting. And then, I become right. It's like the pinnacle. And I'm working with them now and Norwich City football team to try and do some reading for boys. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is like crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, things do kick off. Once you've got books there, you never know what, even if they're doors you didn't realise you were knocking on, things happen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
but it's having it, isn't it? It's having that book.
You've got to have the product. You've got to have the product. Otherwise, it's just not anything tangible. But the kids themselves don't care how you've published it. In fact, if they do ask about self-publishing, they actually really like the fact that you could do it yourself and you can be in control. And I've done books with, I've worked with, we're supporting 7 Stories, the conferences, but I've worked with the London Story Centre, Discover, and gone in with children and created class books. And they love the fact that they can contribute and make something that becomes real themselves. So, there's no barrier for them. They don't think they don't really get what traditional publishing is. So, yeah. I think
we've got to break those barriers, haven't we? We've got to smash those barriers down. So someone puts something up and we smash it down. You're not going to keep us back.
Having said that, though, I'm really super impressed that you've sold as many books as you have, Debbie, because I certainly haven't. I don't know about you, Kate, but
not 11,000, no.
But that's like, I feel like a door-to-door salesman sometimes.
I know.
It's going in, as I say, it's going into the bookshops, and it's a long day. So I'd get there at like perhaps 10 o'clock, and I'd be there till the close of day. And during the day, I might have sold 20 books. I might have sold 10. You don't know.
No, you can go to one school visit and sell 60 books, and then go to another school visit and be used. I've been used as a sort of TA cover or teacher cover, because I say that I'm a primary teacher, and I have been in schools when I've sold no books. They've not told anybody I'm coming. No rock up.
Yes.
And I'm just there, just talking to a class while the teachers bugger off and make themselves a cup of tea. So you never know. But that's the same as traditionally published. And there are, you can chase the money from one school, and another school the next week will, be falling over themselves to book another visit or get you on in some other capacity or.
And I think when I first started out, I did some free visits, but the problem is then that you're kind of you're not giving a great impression as yourself as being a professional, because it's kind of putting down what you're doing, but also they don't have any ownership of the visit, so they're not terribly, schools are not going to be terribly bothered. And I've been the same. I've been into schools where I've arrived and they'll go, oh, who are you then? I go, oh, I'm your author for the day. And they'll go, are you? Well, we're just finishing assembly. I'll just go and find someone, and I'd be there 40 minutes while they found somebody. And then they go, oh,
not always inside either.
No. Yeah, and I
Sometimes out on
have
the
got you
playground.
down. They say I have got you down. But could you wait a little bit longer, because we're just in the middle of maths, and then we'll get someone out to you. And you'd like, and yeah.
What about the international thing, though? Do you feel like, because you're just saying about being traditionally published as well, and I'm obviously chasing that again. I've got an agent now, and I'm out on submission with my third book out on submission. And for me, it's a little bit about you're sort of limited geographically and limited. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
Distribution.
I don't know, Kate.
Well, my main distribution is definitely this country. I've sold a handful of books around the world, always to either family, friends, or friends of friends. But I've no way of pushing in other countries. So my main sales, certainly for book one, because schools were open, was going into schools. Book two, I was lucky. I had a high initial sales. And that was in the middle of lockdown, and it was purely social media and word of mouth. And that is something I would say is quite important, actually, is building your community. And absolutely. Finding people, not just to support you in your writing, which is incredibly important, but to also support your book when it comes out. So I was in a very lucky position, and I built up a bit of, like you both have, built up a community. So when it came out, I was blown away. I put something up on Twitter, and by the end of the day, I'd sold 70 copies, and I had these amazing writers tweeting about my book. I've got cover quotes from Vashti Hardy and Andy Shepherd, which is just like when I did the first book, it'd be like, and that is purely reviewing their books, talking to them, meeting, going to their events, and building a community and making friends. So when it's my turn, I feel in a position to be able to say, if you don't mind, could you have a quick flick, and if there's anything you want to say, and I was absolutely blown away by the response, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that. I am a reviewer, and I get really, have to say, annoyed by self-published people who they don't follow me, they've never connected with me at all, and then they get humpy. They send a copy of their book, and then they say, why haven't I reviewed it? It's like, firstly, because I don't know who you are, and you haven't made any effort to sort of connect with me and what I do, and secondly, because it's actually not very good, and I can't possibly. I review maybe 40% of the books that publishers send me. I did 151 last year, which was not even half of what I got sent. I can't then open doors to self-published writers and just say, send me all your stuff. But what I have done, the self-published writers that I have reviewed, because I will do, are people that have, firstly, I have some sort of a connection with, and secondly, that they have done their homework, and that they haven't just had a go at their own illustrations if they're not an illustrator, and put together something that shows that they haven't looked at the market, they don't know what else is out there. Picture books that I get sent through, which are, 3, 4, 5 times the length of a picture book that is traditionally published, with a few mediocre illustrations from somebody I never met, know nothing about, and the first thing I've got is a book from them. I won't review it. So,
it's just rude, Kate. It's
not rudeness, because I've been there when Zachary Mackerel first came out. Jesus, the things I did. I would take it round book fairs, and I gave a copy of my first self-published book to Kate Wilson at Nosy Crow. What I thought she was going to do, I don't know. In hindsight, that is a big mistake. But there is that kind of desperation of just read it.
Notice me. Yeah.
But I can't remember who it was, and somebody years ago said to me, the best way to get noticed in the industry is to promote other people's books and to say nice things about their books, and whether it's an agent you're after, an editor you're talking to, a reviewer, you look at what they're doing and you respond to that. And you wait until that there is some kind of a connection before you go, here you go, this is what I... If
That's a really good tip, Kate. That's really good tip. I might start reviewing on my blog.
It's great fun. And then And when you get a name with reviewing as well, you get loads of free books and loads of proof books. So it's great.
Yeah. But can I just go back to what you were saying about getting the recommendations from Vashti, and that was one of the other things I did. There's an Irish writer, Herbie Brennan, and I absolutely loved his books, The Purple Emperor, and I loved them. So, and this is some years back. I went through his agent. I think it was Sophie and to him to ask him if he'd read my book and give me a quote. And he did.
Oh,
so we've got a little quote on the top.
That shows you how good your book is.
Yeah, and he said he loved it, and he gave me a lovely quote to put on the front. So again, it's breaking those barriers. It's but you've got to. I think
hard. It's not easy. There is no easy. Sit and write a book in January and expect to have something come out in the summer that's polished and brilliant and everyone's going to buy. Not that simple.
I got a quote from Helen Moss. So it's using your connections.
Yes, we love that.
Using the connections that you know. Yeah,
we're not born with connections. We don't decide, that this is going to happen. You have to.
No, and it doesn't come knocking on your door, does it? You have to put yourself. You've got to be quite brave to go out and be self-published, and have some armor. You really need some serious armor because to break the barriers, as we keep saying.
You've got to be a little bit cheeky. You've got to be a little bit cheeky.
Yeah, you've got to be a bit cheeky. So, and we've got lots of questions, but I'm going to just move on. Lessons. So give me something that you would, you think about, if I look back now, I wouldn't do it like that. So lesson that you might have learned on the way. Cam, do you want to go?
Yeah, I suppose because I've done 3, I've sort of learned each time. So like the first time I spent a lot of money on the cover, I've got a friend who's a professional artist, and I paid him a decent whack to do me a really good cover, which actually is a fantastic cover, and I'm really, really pleased with it. But it did mean it's a big chunk of your money. Yeah. So on the second book, I actually just did like a simple graphic, and so I saved a lot of money on there, so it was easy to recoup my costs. Similarly, because I'd had the dark cover, I then paid the extra to have a couple of proofs that were printed off before, so that I could tell that the print run was going to work. So those kind of things are the sort of things that I learned along the way, just practical stuff about how to budget it and like what was worth putting money into and what wasn't. Yeah. I used a publisher, a traditional publisher who had a branch of self-publishing called Matador, which a lot of you probably have heard about because they're quite a famous self-publishing company. And they've got lots of different packages that you can have for marketing and things like that. And I really, really researched whether I would get my money back, because it's a big outlay of money. And what do you actually get for this star package that's any different to anyone else? And I just thought it wasn't going to come back to me. So you sort of weigh up you're very business minded, and you're trying to think, is that outlay worth putting out? So probably if I was to do it again, I'd probably do a collaboration thing. I think the using your community is really important. So I might do like a book where I was working with a charity or something like that, or an organisation, and I would like collaboratively produce a book, so that you've already got like a group of people that would be supportive of you and the book, and when it would come out would shout about it and stuff, and you might even be able to spread cost. So that's probably how I do it again. I do like a collaboration.
So lessons for you, Kate? Lessons you've learned along the way?
Editing is my big learning lesson. So the first book, like I said, it wasn't really read by anybody. It was line edited. So the grammar and the spelling and the punctuation was all fine. But now I've actually written the book. So the ones out there, I've rewritten it because of all my experience in those days, and it's since I self-published it almost went to an agent who went through it and pointed out, you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't do that, right? So I would invest. Well, you don't have to necessarily invest in editor if you don't have lots of money sitting there for an expensive thing. At least a critique group, through Scooby or whoever, a critique group to know what they're talking about, or go through somebody like Scooby and find an editor who will go through your work and point out where it's falling down.
I think one of the lessons for me is I was kind of aiming too far. So I approached Barnes and Nobles in America and the distribution centre, and I had lots of to-ins and fro-ins with them. And then I went and ordered new barcodes, the ISBNs, to go on the back of my books, only for it to fall through. So I ended up, I've just got a big wodge of ISBNs that I'll never use. Possibly. So that was one of the things. I think, for me, mostly it's the lessons that, as you say, it's, using social media more. I think I did a lot on Facebook, and sometimes I overdid it. And I think that was a bit much, but I could have used Twitter more. And I'm not great on Twitter, but that now, using it this weekend especially has shown me the power of Twitter and social media. So I think, if I'd gone back in time, I probably would have done a bit more of that. Okay, I'm going to go to questions now because we've got rather a lot. So let's have a look at the higher rated questions. Ooh. So do we have any advice on putting in an application for funding with the Arts Council?
Oh, can I answer that?
Yes, please. I was hoping you'd say that.
Because I have just put in an application for the Arts Council. So unfortunately it was refused, but I wanted to do a follow-up book. I've got a book out on Sub at the moment about a boy with selective mutism. He can't speak, and I wanted to do a follow-up book. It got really close to acquisitions with Hachette, and that we talked about a follow-up book about a carer. And so I started contacting caring organisations. That's how I did it with selective mutism. It's contacting organisations, and I wanted to do like a collaborative book. But yeah, it's in terms of putting your grant together, you what you have to do is you just go onto the website and you have to register with something called Grantham, which is like their online system. And they have loads of really good guidance notes of how you actually put your application in. You've got two different sort of strands. You've got one to do with lottery funded, and then one which is developing your creative practice. So you have to decide which one you fit into. One is like got capped at 15,000, and one is there's like no upper limit for it. I think it's like 100,000 or something. So you have to decide, your budget, how it all times together. But like I say, the guidance is really good and it's quite straightforward. But it does take a long, long time. It's really detailed. They want a lot of information. And of course, you don't always have your grant accepted. But now I've got the foundation, I'd probably go back and do it again. You can submit your same grant application in again. You just have to tweak your timelines of when you're going to do things. And I think it's quite good for self-published authors. They won't pay for your self-publishing costs, but they'll pay for your time that you actually write, and they'll pay for your research, they'll pay for any collaborative working that you do. But they won't actually pay if you're going to pay like Matador or whatever. They won't pay that, and they won't pay any things that you're going to do towards publicity and stuff like. But they will pay for your time. So, and it's definitely worth. I would encourage you to have a go and put it in. And I know people that have been successful with grant applications. So I hope that's helpful.
Fab, thank you. So a question from Catherine. Do you find that bookstores and festivals won't take you as an established author, even though you have reviews and sales and testimonials? Are there any festivals that will accept indie authors?
Yes, lots of festivals. Not the big ones, but the local ones. Yes. In fact, I'm speaking at a festival in World Book Day. and they contacted me. But the local ones definitely do and encourage. They like the local element, and yeah. Bookshops, it depends how you self-publish. Again, mainly local bookshops for me. But my second one I know won't go in bookshops because I chose to do that one through Amazon for cost reasons. So it won't go in bookshops because they can't get hold of it unless I order it from Amazon, who is like the nemesis of bookshops, and take the books in myself. They won't be able to get hold of them. So that one won't. The first one, it was held in Gardeners at distributors. That went into bookshops. But you have to be proactive. You have to go into those bookshops, and then you have to get your friends to go in and buy the books so that they go in and out of the shop so that they know that there's a demand.
I'd agree with that, Kate. It's about you going in and saying, I've published this book, would you take it? It's the same with libraries. I've got mine are in Norwich Library, but I had to go in and ask to speak to the children's librarian, talk to them, leave my books with them, and then they said yes, they would shelve them, and they've now been spread out through Norfolk, which is great. But it's again you doing it, and I did a festival year before last, because that was the last time we could do them, and that was a local festival, and I was approached if I'd like to take part, and I did workshops for a whole day with children. So they are there, but you as self-published person, you've got to go out there and find them. I'm afraid
it's often who you know, isn't it? It's often who you know, who you're connected with. Back to your sort of community, your community of writing and stuff.
Absolutely, and I think if you put that kind of question on a Scooby website or in Twitter, somebody will come up with something and lead you somewhere.
And then when you've done one, it leads to others, especially if you're good at the first one. And that's a big hurdle for me. I'm quite an introvert, so to go and I have a special pair of dungarees which are covered in books, and I know when I put that on, I'm almost like a different person. And you have to perform, you have to go out and just take a deep breath. And if you do, and you're good, and they get good feedback, they'll book you again, and another festival will be interested, and it snowballs.
But again, you have to work out whether it's financially worth your time as well. And often you sell no books at festivals, maybe one or two, and they might not pay you. So you need to work out whether that's something you want to spend time doing. Similarly with bookshops, for me, it was a dead end for me. I mean, I am registered with Waterstones, and you can get my books through Waterstones. But even with the local store here, I've got a local Waterstones. I did a couple of events and things, but I never really sold many books, and they take such a big cut. If you're selling directly, you get all that money back. But if you're selling through a bookshop, they take minimum 30%. Amazon takes 60%. If it goes via your publisher, they take another 15%. So you may even be paying for someone to buy your book, which is just ridiculous. So you do have to think about it financially. Whereas if you're traditionally published, you just want as many books sold as possible. But sometimes it's the route for self-published is much more important. So direct to schools to me is what financially makes the most sense. But of course, it means that your profile is not necessarily raised. It just is through a community, through teachers talking to other teachers. It's how you weigh it up and what you want to do, how you want to spend your time, really.
And also, I mean, someone mentioned in the chat with craft fairs. I mean, I've done some craft fairs before, but and some have been particularly good. If you can get craft fairs that are in schools, they are perfect. But I've tried to do craft fairs that are big craft fairs outside, and they not even made the money back for the stall. So again, you think you're going to do well. I mean, I love doing them. That's the thing. I love the atmosphere of those kind of things. Absolutely love it.
That's quite good if you can join with someone else. So I knew someone who did the creative, I can't remember what they call it, something crafts, and she would pay the stall. I'd pay her a contribution, and I'd have like one corner, so that we'd have children coming over anyway to do the crafts, and then I would talk to the parents about books. So if you can do like a collaboration like that, and then you can split the cost and the time, it's much better way of doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got another question from Becky. She said it's a marketing question, and she wants to know how to build some good mutually beneficial relationships with book bloggers on Twitter and Instagram. Is there anyone you'd recommend?
For me, if it's going to be mutual, then there are so many bloggers. It might be a good idea to look at some of the newer bloggers coming out. People like Joe Clark, who has a high reach, that she's got loads of things coming in. She, won't take on self-published books much the same as me. She won't put them on an she's got a reason to. So I would definitely say follow book bloggers first. Connect with them, look at what they're putting out there, like their posts, go on social media and repost their posts, and then they'll go, "Oh, who's this?" And they'll know who you are. And then, if you come, am I still there? I've gone quiet.
You went a very quiet and muffled there.
Yeah. Am I back?
Yeah, sorry, Kate.
Blooming internet.
You're gonna have to say it all again.
It's just saying connect first and like their posts and follow them, and I don't know if I'm coming through now because I've gone quiet, but maybe pass you on to Camilla.
Yeah, I'm not the one to ask about social media, to be honest. I watched The Social Dilemma and it scared the Jesus out of me. And so I don't tend to use social media very much at all. I rely on my website, but I don't probably get very much traffic. I am very community locally based, which is why I'm pursuing the traditionally published thing quite tenaciously. So I am probably not the best person, but I am listening attentively, thinking, right, I am going to be following loads of book bloggers now and liking their posts.
They are generally, all the ones I've met are lovely. That's the thing to remember, that most of the kidlit world is lovely. Most of them are supportive. Everybody has been on a journey, especially the authors. And a lot of bloggers are writers as well. So lovely Jo has just signed her first book deal. So she's been on that journey and she knows what it's like. So it's not that she, and Scott Evans is another brilliant one. Liam, I can't think, Not So Tweets, he writes under. They are all on their own journey, and it's not that any of us want to just blanket ban self-publishing. It's just that there is so much out there. So if you want to be reviewed by a blogger or a reviewer, then you have to stand out. And the first thing that means is they have to know who you are. And the way to do that is to connect with them and go on their blog and comment and like and repost and just show them that you are supportive. And if you're supportive of them, they will be more likely to be supportive of you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So a question from Amelia, which is, can we recommend other avenues to self-publishing rather than Amazon? So I see mine is through a printing company, York Publishing Services, who do offer a self-publishing package. So mine is through them, and I've had a great time with them. But it does mean that I have boxes of books in the eaves of my house. And to be honest, doing it that way, I want to change the covers of my books, but I can't until I've sold the books that are in the eaves. So it's weighing things up. But you went a different route, Camilla, didn't you, with Matador? But that still comes through Amazon, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the probably point you in the direction of Ali, the Alliance of Independent Authors, is it? They will have loads of different suggestions. There's loads of different companies that do it. There's loads of different ways that you can do it now. I mean, there's Wattpad. There's all kinds of stuff that you can post in installments of your own stuff, like directly online. So it's worth sort of just having a research, just Googling around and finding out how other people have done it.
And when you found people who've done it a certain way, contact them and find out what they thought. Because my first self-published book that came out in paper copy, I had issues. I mean, he was a lovely guy, but there's no way I'd recommend going with that publisher again for all sorts of reasons. And I wish I'd, gone out and found somebody who'd gone with them and said, what do you think? And then done the same with other. I just did my research online.
Yeah.
Okay, another question from Catherine. Which marketing technique have you found most useful in driving exposure and sales? Who wants to go with that? You want to go with that, Camilla, first?
Well, it's sales. We've said this before. Of always, for me, it's been through schools. So anything that I can do to make creative school visits, to make my school visits exciting, interesting, then the teachers will talk to each other, and you'll get booked. And that's how I've made best sales. Honestly, I could waste time. I see it as sort of time wasting, and a lot of the time, just going onto social media and talking about things. The actual direct sales come from my school visits, and that's all I can say. I mean, someone told me about making little key rings, so I make little key rings to give to the kids. I have lots of different games that I play. I make it very interactive or exciting. Of course, at the moment, it's all gone virtual, so I've made a little video about how I've gone virtual. It's making it fun, making it interactive, but of course, I'm not selling any books at the moment, not since COVID, nothing. Very impressed how people can sell books during this. I mean, there's a lot of self-published authors are doing really, really well, and that's fantastic. They're probably much more connected than me. They're on Depop and using lots of different Etsy and things like that to sell books. But I'm just not very savvy with all of that. I've only just downloaded TikTok. I have no clue what I'm doing. So I'm very reliant on schools, I'm afraid.
Kate?
In normal times, Camilla is absolutely right. Going into schools will sell you the most copies of your book. You've got a direct audience who you're selling yourself as well as your book. And even if they haven't pre-ordered it, when you get there, if you've done a good session and you've given them not just this is my book, you should buy it, but a creative writing session and how they can write their own books, and you've done it in a funny way, they will want to buy your book. That's definitely the best way. I have, though, used Instagram and Twitter to sell my second book because I haven't been going into schools. So, and that's been, again, with social media, you have to just gauge carefully. So I would say maybe even 20 posts, 25 posts about something else, and then one about your book. If your grid is just covered in your book, people will unfollow. They're not interested.
Yes,
you need to, they're buying you on social media. They're not buying your book. They have to be invested in you as a writer. And then, you've got a book out. That sounds, I like you, so I probably like your book as well. So
cats, that's what you need. Cats.
Cats and dogs.
If you put cats on Twitter, people will follow you.
I've got 2 cats. I should get
loads.
loads.
Keep putting your cats on there.
I have a grumpy dog, but
oh dear. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got a question about contacting people for permission to go into larger bookstores. I can probably answer that one. That I went into Waterstones and asked them for who to contact, basically, who would be in charge, who might be interested in self-published books or independently published books. And they gave me the name of somebody who to contact. And otherwise I was just phoning Waterstones, asking to speak to the children's buyer. It was as simple as that. I mean, I'd be on the phone for the day. That would be what the day's work was. And I'd be on the phone asking to speak to the children's buyer to get them in to individual stores. I know sometimes people will go, oh, that sounds good. I had the ISBN number, so they were able to look it up. But, it is, again, it's about, asking around. You may not find the information on the Waterstones site itself, but it's worth having a look to see. Okay. Kate, I think possibly this one. Is it possible to have one series of self-published books, but also have books traditionally published?
Definitely. There are people who do it. Maz, bless her, if she was here today,
Yeah.
her book, Who Let the Gods Out, that was originally self-published, and she now is away and doing brilliantly. She still has, I think, picture books, which are self-published, and she takes them on her author visits too. So she's got her two, I think, probably the traditionally published books will take over completely, but she does do both. So yeah, definitely. And Camilla and I are both out on submission. We're still both going down the traditional route as well. But if you're
Submission? Yes, I'm on submission. Yeah, I'm on
We're all like
submission.
that. Waiting.
Yeah, I'm waiting by the phone
Oh,
just in case they call me today.
now it's a good week. It's a good week. I put something on Twitter about it's going to be a good week. Then the response that I had back, everyone reckons this is the week. It's some beginning of,
Yes.
I don't know. Somebody gave me a reason why I feel
This
so
is
positive
our
this week.
time.
So this is your week.
This is our time.
Yes, the waiting is a killer, isn't it? Oh my
And
goodness.
it doesn't change. And
No.
I think probably self-publishing is partly because we've been there. We've been at the top, just about to go, and
Yeah, hang
everything
on.
seems to be pointing our way, and it goes. Right.
Oh,
Well,
That doesn't mean that I'm going to stop going down the trad route.
no, that's the thing. It doesn't stop you, does it? It just means that you until you get what you want, you just go that route, and it's having something else rather than just waiting, isn't it?
It doesn't put agents or editors off either, because
we should add that.
Really yeah.
I've put that in my cover letter. Yeah, my cover letter to the agents I'm on submission to. Yeah, it says that I've published books, self-published books.
Especially if you're taking it into schools, because you're already showing that
absolutely.
if they take you on and you get traditionally published, you're not afraid to go and promote and wear crown. Absolutely brilliant, Debbie.
Yeah, that's a really important point. They almost like it more that because you've got an understanding as well about how difficult it is to sell books and how much goes into it all, and you're kind of much more realistic about it all. You're going in with your eyes quite open.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to have to wrap it up now. That's just been amazing. It's been such fun talking to you guys. And I think we've pulled a lot of... pulled apart self-publishing in a way that hopefully people will be able to see. Although it may be quite daunting, it's a lot of fun. We've survived and we're smiling.
Yeah.
So
thank
you. So thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you to Elizabeth and Annalise who are behind the scenes watching and checking on everything. Well done. And just to remind you that the blue button is down the bottom if you want to donate to 7 Stories. But otherwise, thank you all for being here. And hope you enjoyed the session, and we'll see you at another one. Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.